الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهداه إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Dear brothers and sisters, this is a new lecture where we're going to study the introduction to commentary of Imam Ibn Juzayy al-Kalbi, التسهيل لعلوم التنزيل. And of course we're not going to study the whole book, but we're going to study the introduction. And why did I choose this introduction? Because it's very beneficial and very important. So this lesson actually is not a lecture of Tafsir, but it's a lecture of introduction to the Quranic science or the Quranic knowledge. So we're studying what has to do with Quran, with commentaries of Quran, and with all these types of things. And there are lots of books that were written about that. There are books that were written by great Imams, like the book that was written by Imam Zarkashi, and the book that was written by Imam Suyuti, and the book that was written by Sheikh al-Zurqani and Sheikh al-Dhahabi. All these books, and Manna al-Qattan and others, and there are lots of books that were written about Ulum al-Quran, science of Quran. And these books focus on the Quran, the meanings of the Quran, the books that were written about that, the commentaries of the Quran, and the knowledge that we can find in the Quran, and all these types of things. So this is the main idea of this lecture. Now, why did I choose the book of Imam Ibn Juzayy al-Kalbi? Because, first of all, his introduction is very beneficial and very interesting. And second thing is that because he's from Andalusia. We in our academy focus on the books of the Western Muslims to take care of it, And therefore, it's summarized, and because it's summarized, we can't study Al-Burhan fi Ulum al-Quran, which is a big book written by Imam Zarkashi, or Al-Itqan of Ulum al-Quran, like for Imam Suyuti or others, because those are big books, 2 volumes, and full of knowledge, yes, but to study something in 10 sessions, you need to take a summarized book and give commentaries on it. So this is the idea, actually. So, therefore, as usually, before we study any book, we study the bibliography of its author. So, who's the author of this book? It's the great Imam Abu al-Qasim Ibn Juzayy al-Kalbi. Ibn Juzayy al-Kalbi is called Muhammad ibn Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Yahya Ibn Juzayy, and he was called Abu al-Qasim, and he is from the tribe of Kalb ibn Wabara, an Arabic tribe, and he is from Granada, the last Islamic states that remained in Andalusia, and he lived there, and he passed away in that in fighting the enemies, the Crusades, Spanish Crusades. So this Imam, some call him Ibn Juzayy. That means small juz. Juz means part. But it's he's known as Ibn Juzayy, not Ibn Juzayy. And all scholars that wrote about his life, his bibliography, mentioned that he is originally from a Yemeni tribe called Kalb ibn Wabara. It's a tribe from the great tribe of Yemen, Himyar, from the tribe of Bajila. This is the tribe of several Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ, like Dihyat ibn Khalifat al-Kalbi, Zayd ibn Harithata, and his son Usama ibn Zayd, radiyallahu tabaraka wa ta'ala anhum jami'an. Now, actually, this Imam was born in Granada, which was the capital of Andalusia, or the last capital of Andalusia, and it was a city of knowledge and science and stuff like that. He was born in the year 693. And he grew there in Granada. And his family is a famous family, or was a famous family in Morocco and Andalusia. So therefore, he had before him people who were people of knowledge, people of politics and stuff like that. So therefore, he started studying, as all Muslims in that era, studying the Holy Quran and studying Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and then learning Arabic, and studying jurisprudence by the Maliki jurisprudence, and all types of knowledge. Actually, all types of knowledge. After he became capable, he was given a masjid in the great masjid of Granada to give the Jumu'ah speech and to be an imam there. Although he was still young, but he was capable, so they gave him that post. He studied by several scholars, and the main or the most famous scholars that he studied with is the Sheikh Abu Ja'far Ibn Zubayr, where he taught from him Arabic, jurisprudence, hadith, and the recitations of the Quran. He studied with Abu Abdullah ibn al-Makkad, Abu Hassan ibn Sam'un, Abu Abdullah ibn al-Imad, and he benefited a lot from Al-Imam al-Hafiz Abu Abdullah ibn Rushayd al-Fihri, very famous scholar. And Al-Imam Abu al-Qasim ibn al-Shat al-Ansari, who was known by his book that he commented, or he reclined on Furuq al-Imam al-Qarafi rahimahullah. So actually he has a lot of professors, and he had several students. So many students benefit from him and took knowledge and participated in his lectures and took all branches of knowledge from him. Like Lisanuddin ibn Khatib, the famous minister and politician and literature. He was a great scholar who passed away 776. Al-Imam Abdul Haq ibn Atiyya, well-known Imam that has a great book, and he was a khatib, he was a judge. Muhammad ibn Qasim al-Ansari al-Jayyani, Abu al-Hasan al-Nubahi, very famous, he has a famous book. Abu Uthman ibn Haddad al-Ghassani, and others. So all these scholars benefit from Imam Ibn Juzayy rahimahullah. And scholars spoke very good about Imam and honored him and praised him, Ibn Juzayy rahimahullah, and his house. So Ibn Makhluf, Muhammad ibn Makhluf, who wrote a book about the bibliography of Maliki scholars, he said he is from a great house that is known to be honored and great and knowledgeable. And he said that he was an imam in, or a leader in, memorizing, knowing hadith, commentary on the Quranic commentary, and jurisprudence and stuff like that. So all scholars in his era and after his era praised him and spoke very good about him. Ibn Farhun, who wrote a very interesting book about Maliki scholars, bibliography of Malikis, he said he was on a very good path in knowledge and searching or seeking knowledge and filling his time with that. So he says that he spent a lot of his time teaching people, and he was a great scholar in Arabic, jurisprudence, origins of jurisprudence, or derivatives of jurisprudence, recitations of the Quran, hadith, literature, and more than that, he was very famous in tafsir and all these types of things. So actually, he praised him a lot. And Imam Ibn Juzayy rahimahullah, since he was a child, he used to go and search for knowledge. So he memorized the Holy Quran and he loved it. He memorized Quran before the age of puberty. And what made him be a genius since he was young is his great memory, his strong memory. So he memorized the Quran with the recitation of Warsh, which is until now the famous recitation in North Africa and Western Islamic states. And after that, he started teaching students all what has to do with the Quran. Memorizing, tajweed, recitations, and teaching them hadith, especially the two authentic books, Bukhari and Muslim and Muwatta, and teaching them Arabic and all types of knowledge. So his students benefit from him a lot. And more than that, as many Andalusians, he was very good in literature. So the Andalusians used to take care of literature a lot. They study poetry, study how to read, how to write, beautiful writings and stuff like that. So he was like them. He was one of them. And therefore, Al-Imam Ibn Juzayy rahimahullah wrote many books in all branches of knowledge. And sometimes he wrote books for his children so that he can make it easy for them. For example, he has a book called Taqrib al-Usul ila Ilm al-Usul. It's in the derivatives of jurisprudence. Very beautiful book and very easy. He wrote it for his son, Abu Abdullah Muhammad. And it's published, it's known, it's in my library. He wrote Al-Anwar al-Saniyya fi al-Alfaz al-Sunniyya, and it's a book that he compiled several recitation or narrations of the Prophet ﷺ, so that his son Abu Bakr Ahmad would memorize and understand. And for his tafsir, which is called At-Tasheel li-Ulum al-Tanzeel, which means easying the knowledge of the revelation, easying the knowledge of revelation. It's one of his great books, and this is the book that we're going to focus on after a little bit. He has a book in the recitation of Nafi', and he has a book of the recitation of other scholars. He has a summary of Sahih Muslim, and he has a beautiful creed, which I would like once to teach it. It's called النور المبين في قواعد عقائد الدين. Very beautiful, small. And he said that I'm not going to enter all these problems between several groups, Islamic groups, because we in Andalusia don't have this problem. In Western, we don't have these lots of sects. It's only one Sunni, and that's it. He has a beautiful book. It's published, of course. He has a beautiful book that is very famous, and it's published and it's translated to English as well. And this book is called القوانين الفقهية في تلخيص مذهب المالكية. The jurisprudence laws that summarize the Maliki school. The beauty in this book is that he doesn't mention only the Maliki opinion. No, he mentions more than that the other schools, Hanafi, Shafi'i, Hanbali, and sometimes others. And he classified his book in a very beautiful way as its laws. The first law, the second law, the third law, etc., until the end of the book. It's published several times, and you can find it wherever you go. And he has other books. He has a lot of other books. Now, actually, after we spoke about Imam Ibn Juzayy and how he wrote and how did he study, how he wrote books and stuff like that, I would like to speak about Imam Ibn Juzayy's, the end of his life. What happened to him? When you understand this, you would get surprised that this Imam that remained as a great scholar, an Imam of jurisprudence and stuff like that, from a famous family, a well-known family, but when the enemies attacked his land, he didn't say, I'm a scholar and I'm not responsible to defend my country. No, at all. He said that this is my responsibility because scholars are responsible about defending Islam. So therefore, Imam Ibn Juzayy participated in the battles against the enemies, and one of these battles was the battle of Tarifa. The Battle of Tarifa means the battle of it's one of the battles where the enemies, the Crusades, the Christians, Spanish people attacked Andalusia. So he went and participated in that battle and said a very beautiful poem before that, wishing to be a martyr in that battle, and that's actually what happened. So in the day, in Monday, 7th Jumad al-Ula, year 741, Ibn Juzayy rahimahullah was killed in the battle against the Crusades, and he was lost. He was lost when he was awakening believers to fight and struggled against them. So therefore, he was subhanallah. He was killed. He had 48 years old. Only 48 years old. He wasn't an old man. But in those 48 years old, he did all what I mentioned right now. And he finished his life as a martyr, rahimahullahu wa radiyan. Now, let us go back to his commentary, his tafsir, and then speak about his introduction. Now, his tafsir is one of the summarized commentaries of the Quran. He squeezed and summarized it. But even though it's full of knowledge, as you know that the books of tafsir, some of them are known to be written by previous books of riwayah, حدثنا أخبرنا, like the books of Abu Hatim al-Razi. No, sorry. Yes, exactly. Abu Hatim al-Razi, and it's in 10 volumes. And Abd al-Razzaq ibn Hammam al-San'ani, Ibn al-Munzir, Abd ibn Humayd, and the greatest. Oh, these are only narrations, actually. These are only narrations. Yeah, so now many of what is in those books was gathered by Al-Hafiz al-Suyuti rahimahullah in his book Ad-Dur al-Manthur. It's a great book where he omitted the chains and he left only the text. He doesn't give his opinions. He doesn't speak. He just gives the narrations. Every verse, and then what are the narrations there? There are books that qualified or gathered between narrations and opinions. Like what? Like the book of Yahya ibn Salam, who passed in the year 280. Ibn Jarir al-Tabari rahimahullah, which is called Shaykh al-Mufassirin. Ibn Kathir. And actually Ibn Kathir mentions the narrations without the chains, because he's late, so he can't mention the chain. And then he starts commenting. So these are the ways of these scholars. Now there are others who focused only on opinions and stuff like that, like Imam Fakhr al-Din al-Razi and others. So those aren't called, and there are a lot of tafsir actually. There are a lot of tafsir. Now, what is the way of Imam Ibn Juzayy rahimahullah? This is the way of the books that gather between narrations and opinions. So he comments on the Quran by other verses of the Quran, and then by the tafsir of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then by the tafsir of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. You see, so the Prophet this is the way that these scholars, this is the way of the book of Imam Ibn Juzayy rahimahullah. Sometimes he mentions the narrator, sometimes he doesn't mention it. Sometimes he just mentions the hadith, sometimes he just says he doesn't mention the words, he just mentions that the hadith has so and so. And rarely that he speaks about the authenticity of the hadith. So usually he doesn't speak about the authenticity of the hadith, he speaks about, yeah. So this is the way of Imam Ibn Juzayy rahimahullah, and he mentions sometimes the reason of the verse, why was it revealed? And many times he just mentions it quickly, doesn't go in details for that. And he mentions in the introduction of his book the main idea of his commentary. It says he has four main ideas of the intention of this book are three ideas. The first thing, that he gathers lots of knowledge in a small book to make it easy for students and close to the ones that want it. Number two, he mentions in his book commentary very strange things and very interesting things to get benefit from, which you rarely can find it in another book, because he's the one who makes it, who writes it. So actually, these are his ideas. Number three, he solves lots of problems by mentioning it in clear words, or by forgetting about doubts. Okay, so there he tries to avoid doubts. And he mentions number four, he mentions the opinions of the commentators and chooses what is most accepted amongst that. Okay, so this is the idea of the book, and this is the way how he goes in this book. And he says that if the opinion is so bad and doesn't make any sense, he doesn't even mention it. Okay, so therefore this is the idea. This is the idea of this book. He comments on the verses according to the classification of the Mus'haf. He doesn't go searching for what verse was before and stuff like that. No. He just mentions from Fatiha to Nas. That's how he goes. So therefore, this book can be the main book that you depend on. So the student always has it, and he goes back to it and studies it, and works on it. How does he deal with the Israelite narrations? He avoids many stories that are so clear to be unacceptable. He avoids those stories. But if the story is accepted and it can make sense, he can narrate it. Now, he doesn't go deep in the things that have to do with creed, with the jurisprudence and stuff like that, and the grammar and stuff like that. Even though in this book he doesn't go deep in mentioning the recitations, the qira'ats. He mentions the 7 main qira'at, yes. And he sometimes can mention others, yes. Okay? So therefore, you have to put in your mind that this book was written according to the recitation of Nafi'. And this makes it different in the commentary. So you see, what is this verse? What does this have to do with this? But it has to be. It has to. You have to. You have to do that. Sometimes you need to mention that. Now, okay. Now the problem is that when you write in a specific recitation, which is the recitation that is famous in your country, and the book goes published without the same recitation, it gets published in another recitation. And therefore, this is how he deals with these issues. Okay. Now he started the book with 2 introductions. The first one is has to do with the knowledge of the Quran, the Quranic knowledge, Quran, usul tafsir, and stuff like that. And he mentioned in it things that are very important, and that is 20, okay, not 20, 12 chapters. And then he mentions the strange words that are not known according to a lot of people. It's called yeah. And yes. Yeah, and after that, he started mentioning the words, the Arabic words that are difficult to understand, and he classified it according to the alphabetic words. So he finished all of it. For me, that's very important to know new vocabulary, and from the the author, you need to know his knowledge. You need to know, and you need to benefit from that. What are the books that Imam Ibn Juzayy went back to? What are the books that he derived and took his knowledge from? The first one is actually, there are several books. The main book is At-Kashaf for the Zamakhshari. The second one is At-Tasheel by, oh no, it's Al-Muharrar Al-Wajiz by Imam Ibn Atiyah rahimahullah, not his students, a great Imam before him. Okay? So therefore, actually, Moroccans and Andalusians focused a lot on Muharrar al-Wajiz, Ibn Atiyah, great Imam, and scholars focus a lot on his book. It's published, alhamdulillah. Okay. There are other books that he took from, benefit from, like Ibn Jarir, Al-Razi, and others. So he didn't arrive. He took from Ibn Jarir and Al-Razi, but he didn't derive from them a lot. It's only rarely. Now there's something here, is that he doesn't mention the opinion of Imam Ahmad except few times, because Moroccans didn't used to mention only Abu Hanifa and Shafi'i. There is no Hanbalis in that era in North Africa nor Morocco. So it's the same thing in Ibn Hazm. It's the same thing in the books of Ibn Juzayy and others. And others. They don't mention Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. So this is the habits of Andalusians in Morocco. And actually, it's not only Andalusians. Even Ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah did that in his Istidhkar and Tamheed. Even Ibn Rushd did that in his Bidayat al-Mujtahid and others. The same thing he did in his book Qawanin al-Fiqhiyya. So, but in Qawanin al-Fiqhiyya he mentions Imam Ahmad more than others. He mentions it more than others. What is the importance and the virtues of this book? This book actually has a lots of knowledge in it, in few words. So sometimes it becomes difficult to understand what he wants to say, because he uses some technical words and some very difficult words, which when you find it, when you read it, you might not understand it. That's why you need the commentators to show you what's the meaning of the words. Okay, so this book is very important, and the student of knowledge always would like to benefit from it, and has to benefit from it actually. So therefore, this book needs a scholar to teach it. Actually, not only it needs to be taught. What are other branches of knowledge in this commentary? Well, he mentions several things that don't have anything to do with tafsir, like training, like things that have to do with actually, these things are very interesting. Have to do with worshiping Allah and missing Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala, getting beautiful, getting famous with Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it's not something normal. Now, in this book, he speaks about how to be humble to God Almighty. And doesn't speak only about things that you see. No, he goes deep in your heart, in your morals, manners, and stuff like that. And so this is very interesting, actually, to write a book like this. That means he was in a high rank, high faith. Now, you can find in this book some stories that have to do with the Quran, but he mentions them, just doesn't take care of them a lot. So he mentions the benefit from both of them. So therefore, the book is summarized a lot. He mentions the strange words, and he mentions some beautiful meanings. Yeah. So there's a lot to say about the tafsir, but this is enough for him. Okay. What is the creed of the author? What is the author's creed? The author's creed actually seems as a light Ash'ari creed. He's Ash'ari. And therefore, he mentions his opinions sometimes. Okay? طيب. Now, why did I say that he was light, Ash'ari lights? Well, he was Ash'ari because all scholars in that era were Ash'aris. But he wasn't a fanatic Ash'ari, which means, and this is actually most North African, no, most Western Muslims are scholars are like that. They don't go deep in these issues. They don't go deep in them. And you can know that he's Ash'ari from actually all of what when he speaks about the attributes of Allah, when he speaks about anything that has to do with the Ash'ari and stuff like that. Okay? So it's so clear actually. And his other book that he wrote in Aqidah mentions an Ash'ari Aqidah actually. Okay? So this is the idea actually. This is the idea. I don't want to go deep in this because it's yeah. So the same thing. I mean, when he speaks about attributes of Allah, when he speaks about faith, Iman, Ash'aris say that Iman is only believing with your heart and pronouncing with your tongue, and the actions don't have anything to do with faith. It just completes the faith, completes the Iman. Okay? So therefore, this is his opinion, and this is how he mentions actually. Now, does he mention things that have to do with tasawwuf? Yes, he mentions that, but he wasn't deep in tasawwuf as well. So he was a scholar. He benefits from the books of tasawwuf as all scholars of Islam do, but he takes what is beneficial from tasawwuf. Okay, so actually he's not that. He doesn't take the bad things that are in tasawwuf. He takes the good things that are in tasawwuf. The book was published several times, and the best edition was published in 3 volumes with some commentaries by Sheikh Al-Barrak hafidhahullah, and it's published. It's a beautiful copy. It's a beautiful edition. This is what I can say about this book. And there's another edition that was published in one volume, but one big volume in United Arab Emirates. And there are some studies on the book, like some scholars wrote some studies. I mean, it's university studies, like the study on the opinions of Imam Ibn Juzayy, and it was a doctorate, and like PhD thesis actually. And there's a book that speaks about Ibn Juzayy from a grammatical point of view by Salih al-Jumayni, and there are others actually. Ali ibn Muhammad al-Zubayri wrote The Way of Ibn Juzayy in his Tafsir. And yeah, so there are lots of things, yeah. This is what I can say about, there are a lot of studies on Ibn Juzayy's Tafsir. There's a lots of studies, more than nearly 20 studies actually. Nearly 20 studies. All of them speak about the way of Ibn Juzayy rahimahullah in his commentary. What am I going to teach you? I'm going to go by those 12 chapters, inshallah, in the introduction, and speak about it, inshallah, and show what knowledge are there. Thank you very much being patient with me. And I think this is enough, inshallah. Walhamdulillah, wa sallallahu wa jazakumullahu khairan.